Alright, so we move on. There's 3 wings dead in this ID now. If you saw the spider wing, it actually included the first room of the military wing, which we're about to do now. So this alcove is cleared because we did that without our debuffs. There's the patrol. We marked this shit up. We're ready to go. This is totally BMable. This trash is complete nonsense. You cast into it, you debuff it, it falls over. Look at the HP on this. Done. It's just gone. You have to be a fucking parse uptime whore to even get a chance at pumping it on this. If you fall asleep, if you're drinking too much, if you're not popping dark runes or whatever, you're not even going to get involved on that pack whatsoever. If you don't pop percent food, if you don't use your evocates, if you don't use whatever, you're not in. We're pulling these back because Skull or X has an AoE fear. The captains, the Death Knight captains, if they are not killed fast enough, they will AoE fear you. Obviously, we killed both of those fast enough, which is sick. So that's great. You want to do that. These Smiths have a Thunderclap. The Thunderclap actually does hit hard, despite how skinny these guys look. They're little, tiny little boys. But, you know, the 2500 Thunderclap can pipe you, I guess, if you take too many of them. But it's not that big of a deal. Again, just melt through them. Throw some heals out. Use Flash Heal. Use debuffs. They die. 2 captains again. We're looking the whole time to see, are we going to get an AoE fear? We probably don't. Yep, we get some debuffs and the mobs die. These guys have a knockback and a whirlwind. Once again, we precast. You could slow these precasts down way more. Like I said, we're just disrespecting these mobs. Completely disrespecting. To the point where AoEing I was way too late. This pack, one thing that you're probably not going to see that's quite the same as Classic is how many Warlocks we have in the raid. Not a lot of people have been running this many Warlocks. It's a lot of 2-lock happening. So when we did this, we had 6 Mages and 5 Warlocks. We were splitting up Skull and X. So it was like Mages Skull, Warlocks X. I don't remember which one it was. Whatever. Something along those lines, right? Obviously Mages were X because I'm counting X. So, and there's a bunch of purple going into Skull. So we split it up, and that would work here, but it does not work in Classic because you would just have no firepower behind your purples. Your 2 guys are just not going to match whatever you bring in your mage team, which could be anywhere from 3 to 6 or 7. I don't know. So perhaps you precast 1 mob and then let the other one just be done by melee. This is a mix of Death Knights, which barely matter. They put that curse out, which I guess is something, but they just fucking die. And also Death Knight captains again. So here you see the captains. The captains need to be killed at a higher prio. If we really fucking cared, we'd Sunder 5, but they die anyway, right? So whatever. Precasting once again. This is another situation where because of the AoE taunt done by X, if you don't necessarily know that you're going to be making the kill speed window such that this won't AoE fear you, you should be pulling it back further than we did here, but we kind of had a feeling. We're in here, we're pumping, we're trying to kill these fucking captains as hard as we can, but we are slowly moving backwards just in case we need to do slightly better at not pulling the entire fucking room with 1 fear, because it could happen. 1 pack with 1 fear, not a problem, but 3 packs chaining into each other because of multiple fears, not great, right? You want to prevent that. Stay in control. Kill a bunch of little ads. I don't know if I necessarily agree with precasting the Death Knights in hindsight over precasting the captains, considering we could just sort of ignore. There's really no damage going out right now, right? Like the non-captain mobs have a whirlwind effect that I guess could be significant, but healers are just there's nothing to do at this stage. It's some random flash healing. I mean, if you watch the frames, most of this is precasts, and it's like a couple people get a lot of threat off of the precasts. Oh, there's your first fear, right? And that's my point, is that even though we have all this damage, we could have done much better pushing our damage into the captains rather than just the Death Knights. And then we would have gotten 0 fears ever, for sure. But still, by precasting this, even recklessly with all these casters, we're super high resources here. We've barely taken any damage outside of a couple flashes in the past minute or 2, so it's pretty comfy. Another situation we're about to see again where, the mobs are kind of scary. They can do some decent output themselves, but they die so fast that it doesn't do shit to us. So these guys are going to be pumping out Curse of Agony in a 30-yard range. Mages should just be outside of 30 yards pumping fireballs. There's 2 different mob types. I don't remember, like a lord or a captain or whatever. the bigger, scarier one, the named one, does 2 dots instead of 1. So you want to kill that. There it is, Death Lord, right? So there's a Death Lord and maybe Death Rider, not sure. You want to kill Death Lord first. If you take a look at some of the debuffs on the raid frames now, you can see 4, 7. Holy shit. So these Warlocks taking 7, 8 Curse of Agony debuffs. They're in range of all of the Cavaliers. And so it's Lords and Cavaliers. The Warlocks that are in range of all of them are taking 1 from each Cavalier and then 2 from the Lords. So they're taking up to 4 per pulse, which is a lot. It's a lot of damage. But you've got Shadow Ward, so you can kind of do it. When there's just these two Cavaliers, you can just completely fucking disrespect these. You just walk into them, sunder them up, kill them. There's no way these are going to matter. These are going to, again, another situation where low armor, we're going to melt them. Just kill them. Don't ass pull anything. You sneak around, kill the Cavalier. The little mobs are very negligible in terms of what they do to you. You shouldn't really AoE too early and tank them as a mage. That's probably the worst thing that you could do with them. But the one interesting thing is if you get them very low, but don't finish them off, they're going to start running towards the stables. They do a role play in which they want to run away and pull more mobs to like help them, which is kind of funny to watch. I almost have a feeling that the classic meta is going to be to let them do that so that they almost act as your own hunter from a speedrun perspective, because these are the mobs they pull. They pull these skeletal steeds, which you can see as well. We just completely disrespect. I mean, it barely matters that we have any sort of coordination in this. We have so much firepower that we just walk into them. If you maintain any sort of uptime, they just die. You have to fight for uptime even. So on one hand, I guess you could say maybe you want to kill the runners. On the other hand, you know, what the fuck? Who gives a shit? These steeds, they do a charge, but you're going to kill them so fast as soon as they connect with you, so who really cares? This wing, by the way, is actually one of the longer ones. The first and last are the longest for sure. This run to 4 horsemen is actually quite a bit. So here we are with Vesuvius. This is where your priests are going to shine. So if you look at his rotation right now, another situation where we're going to really only use a quarter of the resources available to us most likely, and in classic maybe we use half in the form of one of the dudes or 2 of the dudes. The priest is going to mind control Moon most likely to start with a mind soothe by sneaking in, and then they're going to become a main tank. There's tons of videos of that. You don't need to redo how to do Vesuvius necessarily. Our insight here was use bops aggressively. One of the bops is for the priest who breaks mind control with an ad, because that ad is going to come in very hot. Oh, they go for the mind control on X. So when X mind control breaks, the threat on the priest who is mind controlling is going to be super high. That priest is going to need a bop, and then following the bop, he might have to fade, or somebody will have had to have taunted. If a bop isn't accounted for by a priest, you can see there's 4 paladins in this raid, so really only needed 1 to go to a priest. Those other 3 bops should be used for casters to stay in and tank this disrupting shout. So you can see this disrupting shout coming. We're looking to get scorches up as best we can. We get scorches, there's disrupting coming, hide. It turns your mana into twice the damage. So if you had 10k mana, it would deal 20k damage to you, you're dead. We have a shit ton of mana because we're super duper world buffed with a lot of base stats here, so you're just immediately dead. However, it's physical, so Lip and Bop is your tool to just completely immune it to keep your uptime. Melee don't care because they don't have mana. Healers you see over there are against the wall, so that they are LOS. Here's a disrupting shout coming now. Looks like I'm going to lip. Yeah, I've got a lip up. It fades. And you can see the bop calls happening here. 2 of the bops go out. You can look at the raid frames. There's 2 bops on 2 priests. And the boss is about to die. There's not going to be any more bops that are needed on priests at all because the boss is just going to die. There's 1 more disrupting shout coming. Everybody just pumped. And I didn't risk it. I don't think you should risk it either because it's a one-shot. You can't afford to give up your buffs like that. Who cares? Let the melee finish it. Don't bother parsing. Play for the boys. Ends pretty quickly. Let's run back through it real quick. So something to take note of. Look at the target of Vesuvius. It's Death Knight understudy. It's X. The priests are the ones, again, they're pumping there though. Not only are they tanking, they're fucking pumping. They're doing a lot of damage. If you look at the meters at the end of this fight, these mobs are meleeing for like 3,500. It's actually pretty significant. So you really want to just go in, like actually as a priest, play that character, you know? You'll do a lot of damage. So everybody else, as long as priests are doing their job, the Vesuvius will always be around that corner so that we can LOS properly, and then everybody can just hold themselves accountable on an individual level to be safe, and then just otherwise pump, and this dies like a joke, no problem. Shouldn't even be attacking really anybody in your raid at any point. So you save your life. When the boss dies, when Skull dies, the ads become super resilient, or sorry, super vulnerable to spell damage or any damage for a second. So everybody sappers them to pump, but you don't really even have to. You could just whirlwind, do whatever the fuck you have to do. Blast wave, it's fine. So we move on. These are like everything else in the dungeon at this point. You pull them, you do a little bit of precasting, you debuff them, and you blast. You kind of disrespect them. We got a fat ass pull. You shouldn't really tank the mechanics. So the mob type does kind of what you would expect it to. A sword hits the tank hard. An axe hits the tank a little hard. The staff is going to cast an arcane explosion and a frost nova. I think the sword can whirlwind as well. Maybe the axe can mortal strike, something like that. But it's not that big of a deal. That reminds me of the Anubis large packs in the beginning of AQ, where, like, yeah, they get mortal strike and they get enraged, and they get cool effects, but just throw powered shield on your tank and then heal him. It's fine. Precast these a little bit. They die. Here's some more Death Knights. They put Curse of Agony out. They're 2 Cavaliers, no Lords, though. We can kill them so fucking fast. We're only going to get, like, 2 stacks. Just absolutely delete this shit. Easy clap. Move through. We skip this pack coming up. I don't know if you will be able to, because that seems pretty close. But who knows? I mean, if you take a look at it, it's a couple Death Knights, a couple casters. You precast something, one of them will die. It'll be a joke. Just yet another joke. Here we fucked up a little bit. It was kind of, I think, super unfortunate that this was done. But so before that fuck up even happens, melee are going to the right side because everything over there is immune to spells. So we've got all melee over there, no spell damage over there, hunters are over there, whatever. There's some healers over there, there's some healers remaining on the left, and there's a couple tanks remaining on the left, and all the caster DPS is over here on the left. Another situation where it'll be interesting in Classic, where, in this raid, 6 mages, 5 warlocks, we've got 11 ranged DPS on the left side. Maybe we won't have that in a Classic raid, so what happens with the left side? I'm not really sure. That'll be somebody else's problem to solve. I'm sure you can do it with a little bit of pumping, a little bit of CC, but it will change things from this run where we were able to just blast. So the mistake we made here was that the person who initiated on Gothik did so with a Curse of Shadows, I believe it was, and not a Curse of Elements, which is super unfortunate because you can see the in-room timer, which is a mechanic that unfortunately we don't have a choice. I'm going to pause here before something happens. So the in-room timer is when he comes back into the room. Ideally, if you're pumping, you want the room to be clear when he comes back. We do clear the full room, and we precast the in-room because he's actually on the ledge up there. So we're all going to be casting. I'm going to be casting Pyroblast. The Warlocks are casting Soulfire. Everybody's casting Fire. And unfortunately, the curse was Shadows, which is disappointing. He's currently immune, so we can't fix that mistake. So that sucks. We lost a little bit of damage there, but who cares, really? Now, what's actually happening in this fight, it's really mostly about ads. Once he comes down, he just falls over. He's a joke. The trainee timer, you'll see, we're just watching. We know the spawn points. Under 3 seconds, you start a Flame Strike cast. Trainees come out, your Flame Strikes land, they just die. They die instantly. I mean, look how fast, right? We're pretty much AFK. The only people who are even really trying and spending mana at this point are mages, because Flame Strike is an expensive spell. You're Flame Striking, you're using your mana rubies, you're using your mana resources, whatever. Warlocks are kind of just mad. They have to use Shadow Burn or Death Coil or whatever. Anything that stays up for a while, Warlock's gonna fucking Searing Pain it, just destroy it. But excuse me, the ones that are coming out quickly, the trainees only, dead to mages, dead to some fucking Flame Strike precast. So here comes, yet again, under 3 seconds, boom. And whenever so quick thought about what's happening on the other side of the room, you can see what we're doing here on caster side. Whenever we kill something on this side, you can see the little ghosts flying over. They're flying over to melee side. So on the melee side, these mobs that we kill as humanoids will be reborn as undead with their own mechanics. And the mechanics on the other side are realistically, as far as you're concerned, exactly the same as they are here, which is kill them instantly. You see them, they want to do something to you, it hurts you, kill them instantly. stand on top of its spawn, and blast them as soon as they come out, just like we do here on this side. There's a pile of skulls over there for the melee, and they're probably just standing on it. Maybe reminds me of Nef Phase 1, where, you know, if you're well ahead of your kill speed, you're just standing there waiting for a Draconid to spawn, spamming Tab Bloodthirst or whatever the fuck, right? That kind of situation. So these are waves. This is a wave-based encounter. Those were a couple trainees, right? Some more trainees. Now we're going to get our second Death Knight, obviously, but the first rider coming in. So when the mobs start to stack up is when it gets marginally more interesting, I guess. The Death Knights spawn on the bookends on the left and right. The trainees are in every single of the 3 spawn locations, and the rider is in the center. So we're going to get here. It's going to be, you know, you can see that Death Knight plus trainee does not bother us at all. Trainees die instantly. My mana is pretty high. Everybody's flame striking. Everybody's mana is pretty high. These mobs come out. If anything, it's just something more exciting for us to fucking AoE, use our blast wave on, whatever, that kind of stuff. First rider comes out. Riders are a threat. Riders are actually the thing on this side that you really don't love. And then if you look at it, of course, we just destroy it. But at some point, it didn't happen that time. What can happen is a rider can put a debuff out on somebody nearby or on the threat table. And that debuff, oh no, sorry, my mistake. Because there's the debuff now. Wrath and Bukutao have the debuff, as well as Steps and Diggins, yeah? It looks like evasion. It comes out from the Death Knight, and it is procced by the rider. So they have this debuff up. Nothing's happening to them now. But there's a rider coming in 7 seconds, and when the rider comes out, it's going to interact with their debuff in some way. I don't know the fucking lore, bro. I mean, somebody else tell it to me. But they're going to take fat damage. And we actually end up losing somebody later on in the run when those timings sync up. If we didn't kill that rider quite as fast, we might have seen that interaction there between any of the 5 people or the 4 people who had the debuff. But it's not until later that we actually see the debuff interaction go off, and the mage just dies. Straight up, is just dead. You can live it with a GSPP. You can live it with a powered shield, I think, and a little bit of babysitting. But it would be best to just not really chance it. If you get the debuff, especially as a caster, you want to just be a moderate distance away from the rider. So this, considering this is the last one, I expect that this is where it happens. Here's our big spawn. Boom. Yep, and there it is. So, look, let's go back again. Now I'm trying to reset my mana here, knowing that we're going to pump after this raid. After this pack, probably could have done better putting my Flame Strike out. I didn't need 100% of this mana, and everybody should be on the same page there. But if you look, let's see, we'll go slowly. There it is. Arthum's has got a debuff. Wrath's got a rend, but he also has a debuff. When the rend goes away, you'll see. The rider is still alive. He's casting Shadow Bolt Volley. The interaction is increased shadow damage taken. Wait for it. Shadow Volley goes out right here. Actually, Arthum's is dead already. Interesting. But so he must have been killed by some other. He probably just pulled aggro. But that's the interaction, right? Is that damage done is going to be coming from those 2 mobs combining. And you lose somebody. Unfortunate. But still, we easily clear the room. This fight is longer than it is hard, let's be honest. You just hang out and do some trash waves, and it's a joke. And this is some nonsense timers that don't actually exist. There is no Death Knight 8. There is no Rider 5. Whatever. So here we go. We're waiting for 20 seconds. Let's speed it up a little bit. There seems to be a delay by about 1 second where he'll batch and still be immune when he comes back into the room. You can be too early, so we all kind of try to delay somewhat. We were supposed to go Pyro into Scorch. Only 3 people scorched. Unlucky. That's kind of important, but look how fast he's dying. We all have our CDs up. We pop him. We blast as hard as we can. When you get to 50% HP, he's going to channel his teleport thing. The fireballs we had in air, I mean, just pushed him so hard. The melee were waiting. They just killed him. It's over. It's nothing burger of a fight. This trash right after is honestly more lethal than the fucking fight we just did. Remember to buff your boys. If you're not dying a lot, be sure to help your mans. When somebody gets a res, hook them up with their buff, bro. He's owning, actually, though. He gets right back into it. He pops all of his shit, and he blinks back to the action. Popping off. Real recognize, really. Got to make sure your man's got intellect if he's going to play like that, right? Meanwhile, they're doing all this trash over here with some ghouls. Ghouls are the same as they've always been. You stun them at the end. There's a humanoid. To cast some stuff. It's counterspellable. It's the same as it's been. You see a fucking gargoyle. It's the same as it's been. When it does a pulsing AoE that everybody gets this from plague damage, whatever. Can't be dispelled. You want to kill before you get too many stacks. Same. The emitting a strange noise as it's healing itself for 6 seconds, but you'll never actually lose that as long as you're killing it. We ass-pulled some ghouls. Not really great, but at the end of the day, who fucking cares? We're just going to not attack them because we're busy focusing on the gargoyle. And then we are going to single target the ghouls because, again, it's very important that you kill a ghoul that is CC'd. Luckily, everybody targets skull, Hodges go out, etc. There's a new skull, doesn't get a stun, but thankfully no one dies. Intercepts onto new skull, no stun, kind of scary, but Skarmored already lost buffs at this point, so who cares, really? Playing with death like we did before, and it cost us last time, so you can see why we shouldn't do that. We do another skip. There's a little bit of an LOS activity component here with this ledge, so I'm pretty sure it will work on Classic once again. Come around. These guys need a counterspell. You kill them very fast. They're mobs in cloth. They're going to have 1900 armor in Classic. There's your counterspell. They'll die quickly. 5 Sunders, they'll die faster than you imagine. This skip, suspicious. Not sure. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. I think it could. Here's some slime. Here's more thought about, just like it was before. If you get into any trouble in the slime, you don't want to be in this state. You want to be in the slime. Because you can see, actually, let's run back do that again. I'm low HP from having left the slime. I walk into the slime. I'm full HP because I'm walking into the slime, and that's just how it works. It makes you full HP. Don't know. Then you leave. Right? Back to low HP. Very scary. Especially as a mage where these percentage HPs is like, that's fucking nothing. What is it? 1k? 800, right? Not a lot. Meme about your buffs. There was no buff cap in this server, so again, just memes. Get a counterspell. We run through here. We walk through on the way to Four Horsemen. And there's a patrol, and that's why we walk through. You can see around the corner that patrol is coming, so we have to make sure that we walk back. Sick distract from somebody who hit a little vanish. We get to escape without doing that pack at all, which is great. If you did have to do the pack, you can take a look at it, actually. What was it? It was 2 caster mobs and a guy who does the AoE Curse of Agony, right? So nothing exciting. We move forward. Here comes Four Horsemen. Four Horsemen opens up. What are we thinking here? Four Horsemen was interesting. This is one of the better Four Horsemen that I think has probably ever been done at this point, especially on private servers. Our goal is to spread out and push every mob into shield wall as early as possible. So where everything kind of gets controlled by Thane Korthaz, which is the on the left side here, it'll be over this situation, it'll be this situation on the mini-map in this area. Thane Korthaz has a meteor that needs to be spread out by everybody, who's, as many people as possible so that the damage is spread. You can't let the tank solo tank it because they will die. So your rotations have to be bound by everybody being on time to soak Korthaz Meteor. So the idea was that inside of a 9-mark rotation, you spend 3 marks at Korthaz, 3 marks at Mograine, 3 marks anywhere else, right? In a prog setting, a lot of people take that anywhere else to just AFK inside of a safe spot, which is cool, but that's not what we did at all. We took the anywhere else mark time, and we spent it on a boss, and you just have to know that you have 3 marks of dynamic activity before you have an adherence to be back at Korthaz, so that you can be on tempo to soak the meteor. So we start off, marks go out, everybody does a Blood Rage timer together, because it's very important that no weird threat bullshit happens during the pull. It's not that everybody needs Blood Rage per se, it's just that we don't want anybody to be able to even change the threat. So this first pull timer is for Blood Rage. They Blood Rage, and then they walk in, and then they go. So they spread things out, so let it go a little bit. So that pass shot is better. There's all 4 of them. Tanks grab, we split. Cool. So the back 2 are going to the back, as intended. Perfect. That has to happen. The front 2 go into their corners. We have 13 seconds to pull this off. You can see by the first mark, right? You only want to be taking 1 mark at a time. 2 marks at a time, it's not an instant wipe, but holy fuck, it's bad. So we're on pace to make sure that this happens. This is actually quite good. Myason's owning. He's got a taunt out. He'll probably follow up with a bunch of threat or a mocking, and it'll be sick. Korthaz is this guy, the X. He's going over this direction. So the people who are going with X, you can see the meteor timer coming out in about 23 seconds, which is plenty of time for them, right? They're going to have to be stacked over here. After 3 marks, you have to move. You have to rotate because, well, you don't have to, but it's a good idea because that's when the damage starts to get really high. So our goal with these shield walls, once again, which was push all of them into shield wall. 50% is the first shield wall for any of these mobs, and then it's 25% again. So you don't really want to try to zerg through the shield wall. You just want to proc it and then fuck off. So our goal is, you can see Mark 2 coming. We want 3 marks, just as intended, where, you know, we're not taking any extra damage by taking a 4th mark, and we get this mob to 50% HP. And there comes the first meteor, by the way. So there's a meteor coming out over there on Korthaz in this mob. Mark 2 is coming out. We're pumping super hard. You can see we're 60%. Mark 3 is on the way. We're easily going to make it. 55, 54, 53. Here comes Mark 3. We're waiting for Mark 3 to happen. We made it, right? We made the shield wall, so we owned. Mark 3 goes out. So I made a mistake. I actually took a mark from both mobs, which is a misplay, but so it goes. Shouldn't do that. So here now, I was just at a different horseman that wasn't Korthaz. I'm leaving Mograine. I need to be back at Korthaz by Mark 9. I have 3 marks of free activity. So here comes that mark again. I leave and I go into my sort of like 3 marks of do whatever the fuck you want. I could be AFKing in the safe spot. I could be bandaging myself. I could be just fucking screwing around doing nothing. I come over here. I get a little bit of pump on Zeliak. I see that the chain is way too stacked up and it doesn't look safe. So I'm bouncing and I'm going to take some of my mark time. And you can see the Mograine shield wall ending now. I'm over here on Bloomo because the dudes who started on Bloomo owned super duper hard. There's curses on it. Everybody's fucking owning. There's Sunders on it. There's Fairy Fires. Everybody's owning super hard. And I just pushed it into a shield wall. I started the shield wall. It was at 50-something%. And I recognized that there goes Mark 6. Sorry, I was wrong about Mark 9. It was after Mark 6. It's a 6 mark rotation, not a 9 mark rotation. Either way, I think you could probably do this with some variations in 3 groups, now that I think about it. But regardless, I make it back in time with all the mages. We all share the meteor. Everybody's got no problem. You look at the raid frames, no one's dead. All good. We push out another shield wall on Korthaz right there. So now we have 2 shield walls running at the same time, which is Zeliak and Korthaz, which are the front 2 mobs. We're still pumping because we have to stay here for 3 marks, and you can see now on my debuffs, I've got marks from every mob. I've seen some action on every 4 horsemen, every of the 4 horsemen, which is what you want to be doing as a ranged. The melee are kind of stuck either as a tank, alternating between 2 mobs, or rotating in a larger situation, kind of similar to how the range did, but with a lot more running and a lot more intercepting. Really great spot for speed Zanzas as a melee, pretty much no choice, actually. Range, you have an option. So here, because we pushed those shield walls, those front 2 mobs are dead. Because we pushed the Bloomo shield wall early, Bloomo is way ahead of the Zeliak mob. Way, way ahead. We already pushed the shield wall. We're a whole shield wall ahead of Zeliak on the other side. Zeliak's kind of high. He just starts... the last Bloomo shield wall is ending now. The problem that we had with the Zeliak was that people were way too stacked. You have to invest the extra time into spreading way further out so that you don't fuck the chain up super hard. Because actually you can see there's a death to who knows what already, but later on there will be a death shortly to an overstacked chain. So when I was there, let's look at that POV for a second. So we turn the camera, we'll see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. Oops. Way too many people to be potentially taking the same beam. That was easily a beam, and that would be death. So can't do that. I left a little early. I left 1 mark early. I wanted to go back in and I wanted to tank it, but looking at this looks awful, right? And here it comes. The beam is a 25-yard range, I believe. This is beamable, and they're doing it because warlocks want to be in range so that they can do increased damage with a shadow burn and death coil and whatever the fuck else, right? And that makes sense. But this should only be warlocks, and it shouldn't be 3 of them. It should be 1 or 2, and this is where the other 1 or 2 should be. But they didn't invest in this. 3 stacked here. And then what happens? Somebody else gets too close. They get beamed. Dead warlock. Right? So this is probably 4 people over there in the corner. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't do that. And he dies in the last second. So you have to invest the time to reduce your active uptime and make sure that you're not taking instant damage. And then at the end of this, maybe you get a Corrupted Ashbringer. So that was a really fast, you can see right now, mark 15 in 5 seconds. A 14 mark kill is ridiculous. Without world buffs, there's no chance that that'll ever happen. You're probably looking at, I would say, a 30 mark kill with world buffs and a moderate understanding of what the fuck is going on. Sub 20 is going to be a nice run. It's actually a really easy way to proxy how well the run is going in terms of speed. But this 15 count is quite good. Kills between 30 and 40 are not too absurd at all. So this goes fast, but it doesn't need to. And this is the end of the wing. Everybody's bouncing out. And we're good to go. And after we finish this, now that this was the last wing we've done, and there actually one thing to think about, one sec before the raid frames change. The reason we've done this wing last is because we wanted to do this boss last before moving into the upstairs wings, because this boss dictates a higher number of healers and potentially a slight change in the melee and range composition. So the switches we want to make for optimizing 4 horsemen also in some way are overlapping with the Saffron KT comp rosters. We probably brought in a healer or 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, plus the Druid, 12 heal, right? So I don't think we were 12 healing the entire dungeon. We 12 healed maybe part of this wing, maybe part of this fight, but we did those summons in the beginning, right? And that's what those were. So leaving the dungeon, we're now in the 12 heal state that we want to be in for Saffron, that we want to be in for KT. Potentially we could also go the route of dropping a melee for another ranged, because if you run high melee in KT, it can get sticky, but we don't do that. We end up deciding to push with this comp. So we make the heal swaps only, and the heal swaps from 4 horsemen synergize well with the rest of the dungeon if you can finish off of that. So, and then you can see the upstairs portal activates differently. It takes you to Saffron's lair after you've finished them all. And that's it. That's the end of this wing.